Okay, good evening, everybody. I think we'll make a start, if that's okay. So, a warm welcome to all of you. It's great to see so many of you here, and I know there's quite a few online as well. I hope they can hear us. So, I'm Mike Hanna. It's my privilege to be the director of the Institute, and I'm really pleased to welcome our guest of honour, Professor Dame Ijeoma Uchegbu, who's going to give our 61st annual address. I'm also delighted to welcome some of our vice provosts who are here, which is great, and the dean of the faculty, Alan Thompson, and also the president of the Academy of Medical Sciences, Andrew Morris. So a warm welcome to all of you. It's become a bit of a tradition that I try and give an overview of what's been happening over this past year at the Institute, and as you can imagine, a lot has been happening, and it's all very positive. So first and foremost, a big thank you, because everything I'm going to tell you about is really down to the hard work of all of the Institute staff. And it is amazing what our colleagues have achieved over this past 12 months. I particularly want to thank Helene, the Institute manager, who's been here for, I think, 10 years today, roughly, the Institute deputy directors, all of our professional services team and departmental managers, and a big thank you to Navida and Sandra for preparing this evening. They all work incredibly hard. And I want to particularly do a shout out for all our professional services colleagues, because without them, we wouldn't achieve all of the amazing things that I'm going to describe to you this evening. So a big thank you to all of the professional services colleagues. They look like they're having quite a nice away day in the sunshine. We get great support from the Dean and the Faculty Office, and increasing collaborations across the faculty, which is really positive. Each year we produce this annual review. Selena is in charge of producing it. You will all get this email to you tomorrow with the QR code, and that rule sort of tells you everything we've been up to over this past year. So a few metrics. So all of you have been incredibly active in terms of publications, illustrated here, including in top-tier journals, and we have 12 of the world's most highly cited scientists just here at the Institute of Neurology, which is remarkable. And what I'll try to show you is some of the impact we have had, both in terms of understanding mechanisms of disease, diagnostics, and therapy development. A few more statistics. Our income is growing over the past 5 years, as you can see, and our contribution is also growing, which is really important. Perhaps most amazing, actually, is that our current active grants now just exceeds just over 390 million, which is a significant proportion of the whole UCL neuroscience active grant portfolio. And I think it's notable that in the last 10 years it's grown from just over 40 million, and that's down to all your hard work and amazing science. We had our away day recently, and we're very clear on what our mission is. It's all about deeply understanding the mechanisms of brain health and disease at multiple scales. And then the USP of Queen Square is, of course, to try and translate that into benefits for patients, either through prevention, diagnostics, or therapies. Education and training the next generation is clearly really important, and we're looking to have impacts, and we're trying to create and continue to create a supportive, respectful, diverse community, driving partnerships across the university and externally. And of course, we're working hard to be financially and carbon sustainable. So we have 8 departments which are the powerhouses of our research and translation, led by these fantastic men and women. And I'm going to try and tell you something about what the departments have been doing. Broadly speaking, all of our departments are engaged in bidirectional translational research, connecting discovery science to the deep expertise that we have in patients and diseases, which again is a really special thing about the Queen Square environment. To deliver that, part of what we've been doing over the past year or two is trying to continue to develop platforms and capabilities that will enable translation to patients. And I'll just talk about 5 platforms, some of which you may be aware of. So about 10 years ago now, with a £20 million award from the Leonard Wolfson Foundation, we set up this Centre for Early Phase Experimental Medicine Trials in Neurology, and that's been really successful, led by Vincenzo, with a whole range of first-in-man experimental studies, including gene therapies, as indicated here. But what's become apparent as progress advances, we need more capability in the later phase stages of trials as we move from experimental medicine type studies. And we've developed this new platform just in the last few months in partnership with the hospital, which is the Queen Square Clinical Trials Centre. And we've expanded our trials capability with additional funding. Linked to this, we're developing advanced pharmacy capabilities so we can actually make up gene therapies, advanced products to give to patients. And I want to thank Joe Moss and Jat, the chief pharmacists, in helping us do this. And we hope to open an advanced therapy pharmacy in Queen Square in 2026. Something I'm also very pleased about, actually, is that we've developed, through Dimitri and Susie, a tailored in-house translational research support mechanism that links with all of the capabilities of UCL, but makes it bespoke and local for all our PIs at Queen Square. And this is already paying dividends, including 3 spin-out companies just this year, and I'll tell you a little bit about 2 of them. And then finally, the other thing I'm really pleased about is 3 years ago, with the director of the Institute of Child Health, Ross Smythe at the time, and we developed this idea of trying to have a preclinical RNA and AAV genetic therapy capability that would benefit all our PIs as everybody was starting to get into this space. And this has been led really successfully by Francesco Montoni over the past 3 years. And there are many positive developments, and this is becoming a UCL-wide facility. So we can't do translation without key partnerships. We get great support from our Vice Provost and from the Dean. We work really closely locally with our hospital colleagues, and I know Kath Hunt is here. And also, of course, we link with the BRC in terms of additional funding, as well as other colleagues shown in this image. So these partnerships are really crucial, actually. We also work really closely with OVPA to try and develop philanthropic partnerships, and with these charities listed here and with many other charities. These are key partnerships in our mission, and we're really grateful for the opportunity to work with all of them. So now the tricky part, I'm going to try and give you some highlights of a massive volume of work. I think I was sent about 300 slides from all the departments of great science, so I'm going to try and distill it down. So in the Department of Imaging Neuroscience, they've developed a new platform which is to look to develop naturalistic imaging. So normally we do scans with the patient horizontal, not moving, and this technique developed by Gareth Barnes using MEG can try and understand brain function in more natural environments. And then there's some really interesting work from Nadine looking at the neural basis of distinguishing imagination from reality, which I thought would be quite useful for me when PIs come and ask me for space, because there really isn't any additional space, but they never believe me. This department hosts the Max Planck Center of Computational Psychiatry and Aging, led by Ray Dolan, and they continue to make important contributions, a couple illustrated here. The Department of Neuromuscular Disease is now led by Rob Pitt-Caithley, and I want to thank Linda Greensmith for 9 years of great leadership of that department. And here are a couple of examples of science. So Ken Smith has done this incredible work mapping a whole brain mapping of neural activity in complex behavior by making recordings using nanopixel technology from 600,000 individual neurons across 12 labs. This is a sort of landmark study published in Nature. It's also encouraging to see this publication in The Lancet with Andre Malaspina, where for the first time in quite a while, a second agent, low-dose interleukin-2, may be beneficial in outcomes in ALS. Also in ALS, this really impressive work from Pietro Fratta, where he has used an antisense approach to rescue missplicing and improve synaptic transmission in ALS. And this actually has spun out as Trace Neuroscience, which he has founded with Series A funding exceeding $100 million US, and this is moving towards the clinic. So this is a really exciting development. This department, led by Dave Waring, one focus is stroke, and this is a really important publication in The Lancet, looking at the place of early anticoagulation in patients with atrial fibrillation after stroke and showing actually it's quite safe, and therefore this is highly likely to change practice and reduce the recurrence of strokes in such patients. I'm also keen to highlight the impressive work of Parashkev Nashev and his high-dimensional neurology group. And I'm sure most of you will realize that this central image is the world's first 3D deep generative model of stroke lesions in 8 dimensions. And this has real potential for optimal selection of stroke treatments. And he has also, with colleagues at UCL, spun out a company, Halogen, to apply such techniques in late-stage treatment developments and R&D across medicine potentially. So this has a huge potential. I also want to highlight that in this department, Rob Brownstone has worked really hard over the past few years to develop academic neurosurgery, and he's making really good progress with new professorial appointments, developing trainees to be surgical scientists, and many teaching programs and a really successful MRes. So we're really encouraging this academic neurosurgery development. In movement disorders, 2 big grants, the Ambroxol slow progression of Parkinson's disease trial, and Tom Warner has been successful in securing $5.1 million from the Rita Lila Weston Trust to develop an AI-centered brain tissue resource, which is really impressive. Also impressive is what we believe to be the largest ever grant in Parkinson's disease research for a trial platform of $27 million, led by Tom Fultony and Sonia Gandhi and Camille Carroll, a really amazing achievement just recently. So there's more. So in the Department of Neurodegenerative Diseases, which includes the Dementia Research Centre, led by Nick Fox, and the HD Centre, led by Sarah Tabrizi, a lot of exciting progress. So one example is this p-tau217 potential blood biomarker to diagnose Alzheimer's just from a blood test. Also, we're now the leading centre coordinating the Dementia Trials Network nationally. Another exciting development is that we're going to open a new rare dementia support centre in early 2026, which is the world's first centre of excellence dedicated to education and research in rare dementias. This is a philanthropic effort with over £8.5 million raised, and the Hillary and Galen Weston Foundation have been central to this with strong support from the National Brain Appeal. So that's a great development to help patients and advance research in rare dementias. So the Huntington's Disease Centre goes from strength to strength with many discoveries, many translational activities, but perhaps the most significant was this study, which you may be aware of, which is a gene therapy trial using an AAV approach to reduce the Huntington protein levels. And this was delivered by direct striatal injection, which you can see done by colleagues in Cardiff. This was in 12 patients, but the results were very significant. So looking at the time course of disease progression over the next 36 months, there was clear statistically significant improvement in the patients who received this therapy. There was also reductions in a particular biomarker in the CSF, called neurofilament light chain. So this is really a landmark study that seems to show a gene therapy can alter the course of the neurodegenerative disease. So this is really, really amazing, actually. And of course, this got unbelievable and amazing attention worldwide in pretty much every news outlet in almost every language. But for me, the most amazing thing was I'd never seen these two in white coats before. But no, it was an incredible period of a week of just a storm of news, and obviously giving a lot of hope to our patients, and the principle that such gene therapies can intervene in neurodegenerative disease is really, really amazing. So we're proud to be part of the UK Dementia Research Institute, which is a network of 7 centres across the country. We're the headquarters, and our science is led at the Institute by Karen Duff. And they're also doing amazing science, particularly very basic fundamental science, trying to understand the fundamental causes of dementia and neurodegeneration, which of course will be crucial for developing targeted and effective therapies. Our epilepsy department goes from strength to strength. So Gabriele Lignani has taken over from Leigh Sander as head, and I want to thank Leigh for his great work as head. They're doing all sorts of exciting stuff. They've also spun out a company, Epilepsy Gene Therapy, and they're about to move into patients, again, injecting into the brain, into epilepsy foci, a gene therapy which upregulates a particular potassium channel to reduce excitability. So again, this is a theme, I think, of how gene therapies and direct brain injection could be part of our future armory for helping patients. Also, just to highlight the work of John Duncan over the years to make epilepsy surgery much safer by very careful, targeted navigation systems to direct surgery to the right part of the brain in patients with focal epilepsy. We have a very strong neuroinflammation department with a focus on MS, doing basic science research, clinical trials, and they have a huge reputation in terms of developing science that's relevant to guidelines that are adopted all over the world. So very impressive work. So as you know, everything's getting hotter, and this is a real concern, and it was really Sanjay Sisodia who has led for the Institute, and actually is a key person internationally in terms of trying to understand how this changing climate is going to affect the normal brain and affect patients with neurological diseases. Locally, we have a very active climate crisis committee who have done lots of great things locally, but also nationally and internationally. Sanjay is leading efforts, perhaps most notably this National Hot Brain Conference, which he started in conjunction with Lancet Neurology and runs every year. And next year, I think Wellcome are also supporting this initiative. I particularly want to highlight the fantastic work of the EDI team at the Institute of Neurology, led by Helene, Plun-Favreau and Dimitrios. It's quite amazing to me that 14% of all of our staff are now involved actively in different areas of EDI work to improve the environment, improve the culture for everybody. They do an EDI report every year. They have an away day. And they've just done a huge amount of work to submit our gold application for Athena Swan. So it's really amazing what Helen and her team have done. And I think it's partly as a consequence of that work, we have more and more early career researchers coming forward for promotions. I've got a few slides now with promotions. So just to congratulate all of these colleagues, I won't read out every name, you'll be relieved to hear. But just it's a big achievement to get promoted at any stage at UCL, so well done to all of these colleagues. So a couple of slides of early career researchers. And then moving on to our senior researchers being promoted, which again, congratulations to all of them for their achievement. UCL is one of the hardest universities to get promoted in, I think. So then national recognition. So well done to Mary Riley, who was made an honorary MBE, and Bart de Strooper, honorary CBE, for their contributions to medicine and science. Really amazing achievements. I haven't seen Mary's medal yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. And then some sadness, death of David Landon, who was the Dean of the Institute from 87 to 95. Also very sad to see the passing of Eleanor Maguire, who was a professor, obviously, of cognitive neuroscience that we all knew. And also a previous colleague in neurochemistry, Tim Bates, sadly passed away. Education is a central part of what the Institute does. Our student numbers have grown dramatically in the last years, and I just want to thank all of the colleagues who work really hard to ensure that our student experience is as good as it can be. So Alex leads that, and the two Alexes are really central to this, Alex Addo and Alex Leff. A new development at the Institute in the last year or two has been undergraduate teaching, and that's going really well, thanks to the really hard work of these colleagues listed here. And there's a wider group, obviously, of colleagues who are very involved in MSc teaching and module leading and marking and examining. And without you all doing this, which we really appreciate, then the students wouldn't get such a good experience. So thank you to all of you. We have some fun as well, and we were lucky this year the Provost joined our platform party, and that was a very nice day at the Royal Festival Hall for the graduation ceremony. I was going to say a couple of other things about this photo, but I've decided not to. Now, the Queen Square Essay Prize, this has been going for 50 years. It's a big achievement. Two people jointly won the prize this year. I'm pleased to say that Charmaine Yam is here, so I'm going to award her this envelope full of something. Is Charmaine here? Yeah. So well done. Okay, so I have to say something about the building. So in 2011, it was just an idea that Ellen and I had. And we're getting closer, and it is going to be practically completed in 2027. The cost's gone up a little bit. But the main thing I wanted to say is a big thank you to many colleagues across UCL, but particularly to the executive board chaired by Ibrahim. I mean, everybody is absolutely committed in an unbelievably positive way to getting this project over the line. It is a massive challenge, but we are going to do it, and it's. I just want to thank all of you for all of your help. So it's looking quite good. We're not far off what it should look like, and these are just some other images, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. I think it is going to be one of the world's leading ecosystems for translational research, with basic science at the Gray's Inn Road end, the more clinical research at the Queen Square end, about half of our staff at each location, and importantly, patient services at both locations. So scientists and patients will co-locate. I think that's really important for translational research, and that's what we mean by the dual hub. And there's going to be amazing core technologies that the building will provide. Some of these we have installed actually already, and will transfer over to the new building when it's ready. There's a really excellent public arts program led by Sam Wilkinson, with one of the features being pioneering women in neuroscience. There's going to be an installation, commemorative sculpture of Elisa Harding in the sensory garden, which Valda Jackson is the artist, so that's great. So finally, just looking back to look forward, of course, UCL was founded in 1826, the hospital here at Queen Square 1860, this institute established in 1950, and this was the fantastic new building in 1977 that everybody was just so pleased with. Seems to have changed a bit. It is actually incredible what has happened in this building, or very close to this building, in the last 48 years or so, that has affected the lives of millions of patients globally. So thrombolysis was discovered in this building. That's the therapy that now is given worldwide for treating stroke acutely. Neurogenetics was really born in this building through the work of Anita Harding, and the diagnostic neurogenetics began here. Treatments for Parkinson's like apomorphine were developed at this institution, and pioneering imaging techniques and SPM for cognitive assessments were developed here, and pioneering neurosurgical procedures, deep brain stimulation, and for epilepsy. So it's an amazing amount of stuff and impact from a relatively small location. And I think the success factors for an ecosystem of innovation like this are state-of-the-art environment and technology. That was the case for this building in 1977, attracting the best people, building interdisciplinary, diverse, happy teams. I think co-locating patients and science in the same place is really important. It helps you ask the right questions. And all of this adds up to an inspiring environment for students and the next generation. I think that's what, with the help of many colleagues and the senior executive team, we are building at this new building and the dual hub ecosystem. And I think that's going to allow us to be the place in the world to solve neurodegeneration, dementia, single gene disorders, brain tumors, neuroinflammation, epilepsy. Still massive challenges and a cause of great morbidity for a lot of patients and families. So finally, I found some research that supported my strongly held view that we needed to be close together. So this was Harvard Business School research that shows that if you want to make progress, it's fine to collaborate at a distance. If you want to have transformational impact, you should be physically in the same place as other people who have the same goals, and preferably groups of people from different backgrounds. That's the sort of recipe to solve big problems. And I think that's what Queen Square has done over the years, and which we will continue to do with this new opportunity. And we're going to celebrate our impact next year. It turns out it's the 75th anniversary of the Institute, which coincides with UCL 200, and we're planning an event on the 2nd of July, which you're all invited to. Okay, so that's all that's happened in the last year. So now I'm really delighted to welcome Professor Dame Ijeoma Uchegbu, President of Wolfson College, Cambridge. She is a Fellow of the Academy of Medical Sciences, an Honorary Fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry, and a Governor on the Wellcome Board. In 2024, she was installed as President of Wolfson College. She served as the Chair of the Academy of Pharmaceutical Sciences and chaired the EPSRC and Science Foundation Island Grant panels. As many of you may know, she served as the UCL Provost Envoy for Race Equality, a role in which she led on race equality work across UCL, and her initiatives, such as the Dean's Pledges on Race Equality, were instrumental in achieving, I think, UCL's bronze race charter. She's also presented to the UK House of Commons on the educational racial disparities that lead to the lack of ethnic minority representation in scientific research. Her own research is studying the mechanisms of drug transport across biological barriers and she's created transformational drug transport nanoparticles, which I think she may be talking about this evening. Ijeoma was made a Dame Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire in the 2025 New Year's Honours list. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you to give this evening's annual address.
Thanks ever so much, Mike. It's a wonderful pleasure to be here. And thank you so very much for inviting me to give this address. But I must admit that after I saw all that Mike presented, I actually wished I was working in Queen Square, to be honest. But I will tell you a little bit about what we've been doing over the years, and also talk a little bit about my own sort of career. So if you take anything away from this lecture, it really is that we are trying to make medicines that are more efficacious and have reduced side effects. And that is our central mission. And we are doing that by trying to divert drug away from healthy tissue and divert drug molecules to diseased tissue. And we are really focused on hard to reach areas such as the brain, the back of the eye, the bladder. And I'll give you some details. And we've also, in our laboratory, we've designed a molecule that can make nanoparticles. And we've used that molecule to demonstrate that we can do what we say we're doing, that is, divert drug away from healthy tissue and towards diseased tissue. We've shown we can do it in humans as well, using a molecule, a novel chemistry that we designed. So, as you know, this is all a very, very collaborative sport I'm presenting, but there are so many people from different organizations that have sort of worked on these things. I worked at the University of Strathclyde, so when just to start from the beginning, I was born in the UK, and then by the time I was a teenager, my parents decided one fine day that we all had to go back to Nigeria, and we had to go back to Nigeria and live in the part of Nigeria that had been most affected by the Civil War. So parents are interesting people. So we all moved there not knowing what to expect. But it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, because even though I went to a grammar school when I was living in the UK, I literally had no ambition to do anything but to really do some low-level tasks and maybe work in a factory if I was lucky. So going to Nigeria opened my vistas. Came back to do a PhD, and by then I had fortuitous, very, very, very lucky for me, I had dispensed with my marriage. I was really happy that it broke down because it helped me move away with no regrets. Sometimes you have to take the wins. For me, that was quite a win. So I arrived back, and I'm a mother of 3 young children, but I'm doing my PhD at the School of Pharmacy as a single mum, and with really a very supportive PhD supervisor. Then went to Glasgow, worked at Strathclyde University for about 9 years, and then came back to UCL. And while I was at Strathclyde, I became a professor of drug delivery, and then came back to UCL. And I must admit that when I got to Glasgow, we've got people from Glasgow here. Oh dear. Okay. I found it very difficult to understand what the taxi drivers were saying. But eventually I did leave Glasgow, because those of you that are from Glasgow, you know it's dark and it's wet. So I did leave and came back. But it was a lovely place to live in. I'm not just saying that to modify what I've said, but really, Glasgow may be dark and wet, but the people are so friendly, so welcoming. So I had a fantastic career at Strathclyde University. So this is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the problem, I'm going to talk about the tools that we use, and I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into how we can deliver nucleic acids to the brain through the nose, and how we have an oncology platform which really addresses a specific receptor on a very hard to treat cancer. And then a little bit about our commercialization activities and how we've been able to demonstrate that we can have this precision medicine in humans using a novel molecule. So first of all, the problem. I don't really have to bore you with this. You know what the problem is. You're all looking at disease and probably testing drugs. So you know it's long, it's arduous, and it's prone with much, much failure. And failure is the only thing that we are absolutely certain that we will encounter. Success, less so. It takes a long time, but eventually, if you're really lucky and you file a new drug application, then that is fabulous. But it takes many, many years. 15 years, over £1 billion. And interestingly, about 5,000 molecules will be interrogated before you get one molecule that's going to go into the clinic. So the success rates are very, very low. And I wonder if sort of when you sort of enter this field as you're young, you're idealistic, and you think that you can solve problems, and then someone tells you, well, you've got a 1 in 5,000 chance, whether then you decide you may want to do something else instead of be a scientist. But luckily, nobody tells us, so I'm telling our younger members of our audience now, but please don't be put off, because it is really, really rewarding. In the clinical phase, you also have a 90% failure rate with new chemical entities as well. And a lot of that is efficacy issues, poor target tissue exposure is a big problem. And that's the problem we are trying to solve. We also know that we may develop these fabulous drugs, but patients are less likely to take them. They're not really that keen on taking their medication. I know that from what Mike said, some people are working on new ways to treat stroke. I do have a friend of mine who had a stroke, and of course more at risk of a second stroke, but wouldn't take the medication because of a stomach upset. Gastrointestinal side effects made this person stop taking the medication. And of course, when you have that situation, you try and argue and you start to use risk-benefit arguments. It doesn't really work with someone who feels, well, I just don't want to have a tummy upset. So a lot of patients don't take their drugs because they're frightened of adverse effects. If we can get more of the drug molecule going to the cytopathology, we can contribute a solution to that problem. So what are the tools we use? Like I said, we use nanoparticles, and the key thing is that we can deliver, for example, nucleic acids to the brain through the nose. We can deliver nucleic acids to the bladder as well. The bladder is hard to deliver to because it's constantly voiding, and so the dwell time in the bladder is short. And the other thing that we show that we can do is that we can deliver drugs to the retina using eye drops. So at the moment, if you present with a retinal disease that is treatable, your doctor will approach you with a hypodermic and actually inject into your eyeball. And this is what people do undergo because they have no choice. And what we've shown is that with our nanoparticles, because they're able to penetrate the sclera, we can actually deliver to the retina. So we use nanoparticles as our tools. And then I'll move to nucleic acid delivery. And I won't even bother to, normally I have to talk about the blood-brain barrier, but I don't have to talk about the blood-brain barrier with this audience. So, but those of you who are not neuroscientists, there are capillaries running through the brain. And these capillaries, when they're full of blood and the blood is full of drug, it's very hard for the drug to leave the blood and go into the brain parenchyma and then treat a disease of the brain because of what is known as the blood-brain barrier. That means that these capillaries won't let anything go through. The cells of the capillaries are very close together. They have very, very tight junctions, so things can't go between them. They have a lot of enzymes on their surface, chewing everything up, and they have these active pumps that pump any drug that gets into the endothelial cells straight back out again. So because of the blood-brain barrier, most drugs do not cross from the blood into the brain unless they are very small, a very low molecular weight, and they are not very water-soluble. And in that you have things like intravenous anesthetics, and of course you have molecules like alcohol as well that easily get into the brain. But the vast majority of drugs don't, and genes don't. And I think I saw some amazing work of injecting into the brain, absolutely mind-blowing. But you can see why that is required because it's very difficult to get nucleic acids in the brain. And so we've got all these problems, which I think, Mike, you alluded to. There are very many serious problems. Most people think about neurodegeneration as the problem, but there's epilepsy, there's neuropathic pain, and there is also things like migraine. So there are lots and lots of problems, and brain tumours that present late, and they have patients have a very poor prognosis when they present. So it'd be good if we could treat some of these diseases using a wider variety of molecules. So this just shows what we did with preclinical work, really showing that when you take your gene and you make nanoparticles with a delivery system, which is really just a long carbohydrate polymer, which wraps around the gene and makes it into a nanoparticle, you can get the protein expressed in the brain when you go through the nose. And you get it predominantly expressed in the cerebral cortex. So we were really the first to show that if you go through the nose with these nanoparticles in rodents, you get predominant expression in the cerebral cortex. And then we thought, well, let's try and use that and see whether we can have a pharmacological effect. So the nasal spray that we've got, because we have something that we are taking into the clinic, has to fire the particles right up onto the top of the nares to get to the olfactory area. But when we're dosing these animals, we let them sniff in, and if we're dosing rats, we actually dose right to the olfactory area with a tube. So we showed that we can have gene expression in the brain, first of all with these images, and then by sort of taking out the different brain regions and measuring the quantity of protein that was expressed. And so this is what we say happens. It stays at the front, doesn't really migrate to the back, and seems to travel through perivascular transport to the wider part of the brain. Other people's work, not ours, when it comes to how it travels. But we showed that we could deliver nose to brain and get it in the cerebral cortex. And this is the device I was telling you about. And for those particles, these are particles of nucleic acid, you have to move away from nanoparticles, which are about 1,000th of the width of a human hair, about 100 nanometers, and move to microparticles that are much larger, so that they would settle in the nares and not come out in the breath stream. The device has a little canister of gas, very small amount of gas, and it has a small amount of powder. And once you perforate the gas then goes on and fires the powder, quite a long plume of about 15 centimeters high up into the nares. So we're using it for a nose-to-brain therapeutic, this particular device. We wanted to see if, we can get the nucleic acids into the brain, but can we have a pharmacological effect? So we decided to look at this model, and this is a model whereby you have an intracranial tumor. And normally, if you have a tumor, you have an upregulation of P73 in the yellow bubble there. And this upregulation of P73 will cause the tumor cells to die. And that happens, but sometimes you find that P73 isn't really upregulated, so the tumor cells are not dying and they're propagating. One of the things that sort of inhibits P73 is this itch protein. So what we thought is that if we can switch off the itch protein, P73 will be able to be upregulated, and then you would have the destruction of the tumor cells that have this form of DNA that isn't optimal. So that was the whole thinking around what we wanted to do. But that would show us that within the brain, we can get a pharmacological effect by going through the nose. So the first thing is just checking it. We had shown that it would work in flank tumors, but if you, so can you see that? Okay, so the first thing to do was we showed that if we could silence the itch, so you can see it's silenced compared to not using a specific form of RNA. So RNA is able to silence the itch gene. It causes the itch gene it causes the itch messenger RNA to be hydrolyzed, and quite specifically. So if you use this form of a ribonucleic acid that actually targets this itch gene, you find you have less of the itch protein. And then you have a little bit more of the P73 protein as well. So this is a positive control. This is the polymer that we're using. And the reason we're using this polymer is that it's quite benign. It's biocompatible and doesn't cause damage to the cells. So we're quite clear that we are getting a downregulation of itch, an upregulation of P73, and we're getting more dead cells here. And we know they're dying by apoptosis. So the green shows they're dying by apoptosis, compared to a form of ribonucleic acid that doesn't target the itch messenger RNA. So we're able to silence the itch gene, get the itch protein to be reduced, and get P73 to be upregulated, and you end up with more dead cells, and the cells are dying by apoptosis. So apoptosis, the cells sort of die on their own. So we did an experiment whereby we've got an intracranial tumor now. We want to see whether we can change the disease, modify the disease using this approach of silencing a specific gene in the brain. So we make sure we have this tumor growing in the brain, and then we give a number of therapies, sometimes nothing, sometimes just trying to silence itch, sometimes chemotherapy, all going through the nose, and sometimes chemotherapy and the silencing. And I do have some gory images. I never know when they're coming, so I just warn people that gory images are coming. Not yet. Okay, maybe the next one. But the big surprise is that silencing the itch, if you look at the animal survival, so the control line is the thick black line, it is not real survival. We have a humane endpoint when the animals lose a particular amount of weight so that we don't let them die. You find that, yes, the animals, the survival of the animals that were given saline and the survival of the animals that were given the silencing of the itch gene are more or less the same. So that was a big surprise for us, because we thought there would be a big difference, and there wasn't. And then when we added chemotherapy, we actually had a change in survival. And when we had both, we had chemotherapy perturbing those tumor cells, and then silencing the itch gene and upregulating P73, that's when we had the best result. And so you can see that we were able to extend survival, almost double survival, using this approach. So we were able to show that we could get a pharmacological effect by delivering a nucleic acid through the nose into an animal that had an intracranial tumor. Oh, sorry. These are the images. And so as you can see, the different tumor, this is the mouse brain, and you can see the tumor poking through here. And then with saline, if you just added the gene silencing, the tumor's still quite proud. With the chemotherapy, less proud. And when you have both is when you have the best effect. So moving on from nucleic acid brain delivery, that's one example. And we have a company where we now have a very big a pharma project really looking at delivering nucleic acids to the brain through the nose. And that's what we're working on at the moment. So the next example is our oncology platform. And this really is just focused on looking at trying to see if we can have a new way to treat triple-negative breast cancer. Breast cancer treatment is very good. The survival rates, I've seen them change in my lifetime, really change, where you've got 98% 5-year survival now. But if you've got triple-negative breast cancer not responding to hormone therapy and not responding to monoclonal antibody therapy, so those two mainstays of therapy for breast cancer, then the survival rates are a lot lower. And if it's metastatic, it really is all about just palliative care. And this is a cancer, this triple negative, that affects black women more than other women. And we have about 8,000 new cases in the UK every single year. But this cancer also has a particular receptor called the CD44 receptor, which is upregulated. So what we thought is, could we interrogate that receptor? So some chemistry for those of you in the audience that like that sort of thing. We have the blue part of started off work with human serum albumin. That is our nanoparticle forming material of choice. Human serum albumin is, carrying drugs around the body, but by making it such that it makes nanoparticles, we can get it to carry even more drug. many, many times more than just regular human serum albumin. And then we added on a CD44 binding motif as well, which by trial and error, we were able to find a motif that binds to and is taken up by the CD44 receptor. And you can see the nanoparticles we made from human serum albumin in the images. And it really does work very well. So if you look at the very first graph, you can see, for example, that you get very good uptake into the cells with the CD44 plus cells. Look at the y-axis are very different on both. And then you can block that with antibodies. So if you have a small amount of antibody, you have a reduced amount of uptake. If you have more antibody, you have even less amount of uptake. So we know it's going in through the CD44 receptor. And if you don't have the CD44 receptor, then you can't really block anything. So we're pretty confident that this new oncology platform is addressing the CD44 receptor. And these are just images showing that when you have the targeted material, you have lots of green, the green cargo in the cells, and you don't have so much green cargo in the cells if you don't have the targeting. So really clear that we can block it with the antibody, and we're seeing it go into the cells. So we were really confident that it's working. But the interesting thing is that it's also working on cancer stem cells. And so these are, the hypothesis that these cells hang about, but they cause the cancer to come back. And you can really see more of the dye that we've loaded onto the material going into the cells when you have the targeting. The AC stands for acetyl. That's the targeting moiety that addresses the CD44 receptor. This acetyl group is linked to the epsilon lysines in human serum albumin. So we know we're going into cancer stem cells with this system, which was quite interesting. And then we did the regular experiment. We've got the tumour in the flank. And the thing to bear in mind is that women these days will receive what you see with the red symbols. That's the medicine that they would receive, paclitaxel bound to unmodified human serum albumin, compared to this new form, which really goes for this receptor, where you see after 90 days, the tumour doesn't recur. Whereas with the therapy, the approved therapy that women will receive today, you can see that the tumour growth stops and then rushes on again. So that was really clearly demonstrated. We're now working with a grant to see which other drugs we can put in and how versatile that is as a system. And also there probably will be another spin-out company based on the conversations that we're having at the moment. So, which leads me to the very last part of the talk, where I'll talk about the commercialization that we've done. And I mean, when people say commercialization and you think, well, that can't be too difficult, can it? I mean, you just go out and tell people what you're doing. They give you a shed load of money, you just get on with it. But actually, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Every single one of my grey hairs came from this box. So this is the company Nanomerics. Andreas Schatzlein is our CEO. I'm the CSO. We've got Andrea Maica for business strategy and Alan Bai, who's ex-GSK. And Alan Bai is always telling me, no, you can't do this. And you just can't do that either. So he's very good at sort of keeping us honest. We've won awards in the company. We won a Royal Society of Chemistry Emerging Technologies Award, and we won the KINS Award for Enterprise last year in the innovation category. And someone went to Windsor Castle, but it wasn't me. And I'm still pissed off about it, but I'm trying to put on a brave face. So we have our own technology, which we call molecular envelope technology, and that's what we took into the clinic at the end of last year. This is the molecule. The molecule, I mean, I designed many of these molecules, but this was the one we eventually decided was the one that we were going to go into the clinic with. All the sort of black part of the molecule is what gives it its biocompatibility. The blue bit is what makes sure that when you have the nanoparticles, they stick to various surfaces, which is quite important because we've used this for eye drops. And the red bit is what causes the the material to form nanoparticles. So this was the materials that we then took into the clinic. So as well as designing it, we had to manufacture it. We had to manufacture it to GMP-like, go through the MHRA and do our clinical work. So we use it, we have a number of different areas. We're working in the neurology space, nose to brain. We're working also in the ophthalmology space, trying to deliver to the back of the eye, to the retina from eye drops to prevent these injections into the eyeball. And we also have some interest in changing intravenous to oral, but mostly we're working in neurology and ophthalmology. So just to give you a couple of things that we worked on a new painkiller. In this case, if you have a really serious pain after surgery, for example, you probably will have an opiate given to you. And these drugs are very effective, but they have horrendous side effects. Chances are you're given morphine, fentanyl, or pethidine, you will have constipation. And the constipation will last much longer than the pain relief. So after a while, you get tolerance to the pain relief, but the constipation, you don't get tolerance to that. And also, you have the opioid crisis in the States, and 80,000 deaths a year. 15,000 of those are from prescription opioids. And we also have 40 deaths a week in the UK from opioid poisoning. So it would be good if we could find drugs that are as effective as morphine, fentanyl, and these other drugs, but they didn't have those side effects. So we looked at leucoenkephalin, which we all have in our brains, and we tried to make that druggable, and that was the whole purpose. So we did some experiments trying to get it into the brain. First thing we did was we added on a fatty acid to make it a little bit more fatty so that it will get into the brain, made these nanofibers from this new molecular derivative. You do get material in the brain, and you do also have the pharmacology. So the pharmacology is pain relief. You can see at the bottom there, you let the mouse put its tail into a hot bath, and then you measure the time for the tail to be released, and that is your measure of pain relief. And it works quite well, but this is an intravenous injection, and that's not suitable. So we decided to, again, go to nose-to-brain delivery. And quite clearly there, we show that the peptide has a half-life of 3 minutes. In fact, the half-life is a misnomer. It is destroyed within 3 minutes in the plasma, so you can't really inject it intravenously. It won't cross the blood-brain barrier, so we decided to go nose-to-brain. We are getting it in the brain. We are getting the pain relief. As you can see, the red symbols show pain relief. In this case, it's an inflamed paw, and you press the inflamed paw, and you see when the animal removes its paw at different pressures. And so the fact that you're going high up the y-axis shows that you really are getting analgesia. But the other thing we're able to show is that you have no tolerance with this analgesic, with this leucoenkephalin. So if you look at, for example, with morphine, and you start your therapy, you can see that morphine works really well. It's the black symbol. So does this leucoenkephalin. And by the time you dose over 5 days, morphine stops working. You can develop tolerance quite quickly in these animals, but the material that we've been working on continues to provide pain relief. So we out-licensed that. The company then got a $10 million grant from the NIH to do the IND enabling studies, and so that is now at the point of IND. And the advantages you can see there compared to fentanyl and morphine are quite significant. I didn't show you all the data, but we don't have reward-seeking behavior, so we will have to test for euphoria. And we're unlikely to get constipation because it's centrally acting, so we're unlikely to get significant constipation. So that's going forward with the NIH. And then this is just the very last example of what we took into the clinic. And this was an eye drop. And here what we're trying to show is that we want the drug to be in the conjunctiva and cornea, but not in the blood, because it's a powerful immunosuppressant. So we're comparing it, and this is rabbit studies. We're comparing delivery to the ocular surface tissue and delivery to the blood. And you can see the red bars We're delivering a lot to the ocular surface tissue. And if you look at the blood spillover, there's no blood spillover that we can detect. So that's what we've got in rabbits. We went to the MHRA, we got a fast-track passport, which means that it's innovative and also that there's a large unmet need because this is for patients that have severe ocular conjunctivitis. And so we did our clinical trial based on these data. And we did it over Christmas. We had healthy volunteers. They had 56 doses each over 28 days. We had no dropouts. We were told not to do it over Christmas because patients want to eat and they want to drink. And our volunteers were not allowed to drink alcohol when they were on this drug. But what we found was that actually they did really well. When we looked at their liver enzymes, it doesn't look as if they overconsumed at Christmas. So we actually, the CRO that did the study then realized that they could do things over Christmas. But the good thing is that with all the tests we did, all the regular tests you would do in a phase 1 trial, blood chemistry and ECGs and all the vital signs, it was safe and well tolerated. But I can tell you that over Christmas, I didn't enjoy my Christmas because anytime there was an email from this group, I mean, I panicked until I'd read it. But yeah, all went well in the end. And the other thing to bear in mind is that we had to go to the US to manufacture our dosage form because we couldn't manufacture it locally. And then we had to re-import it to do the work in Nottingham. So it just shows you what a manufacturing powerhouse. Did they not say we're a life science powerhouse? That we actually are. I always show this. This is my book when I'm trying to think of which molecules to make. And this was the very early ones. And you look at the date and it says 1997. And some of you probably weren't even born in 1997. But that was when I was sort of toying with which one. But we've got a non-irritant ocular penetration enhancer. And we've proved that in the clinic. And we've also proved that we have no blood spillover when we dose to the eye. So the data that we got in rabbits, we actually translated that very well into humans. So the very last is, a gory picture alert. I forgot to warn you. But we're really trying to get away from these injections into the eyeball and get into eye drops. And we have a particular API, active pharmaceutical ingredient, that works against a form of age-related macular degeneration. And we're going to use that and try and treat dry AMD, the very early stages of AMD, in an investigator-led trial. So that's the plan for that, after showing we can deliver to the retina. We know the mechanism. We know that we've got these particles. They're very sticky. They stick to the ocular surface. As soon as they stick, they become destabilized. The drug leaves them and goes into the sclera and then to the retina. So we understand the mechanism as well. And these are the advantages, but the key advantage is this penetration enhancement, which we've demonstrated, and also it's non-irritant. So we had none of the volunteers dropping out or saying that they had eye pain or any problems, which was very important. We have a pipeline of different things in the company that we are taking forward now that we've shown that and they're all powered by the same molecule. So this allows us to end up with further higher value assets later on. So I hope I've convinced you that we can deliver nucleic acids to the brain through the nose, and that we have an oncology platform that targets cancer stem cells. We can deliver metabolically labile peptides to the brain, and also that we have a precision medicine system that targets drug to the ocular tissues. And unlike other eye drops, you're not going to see the drug in the blood. And we can deliver to the retina using eye drops. And the very last thing is to plug my book. I have a trade book coming out in April. So please purchase many, many copies each. But the reason I put this up is that, in my opinion, science is under attack. So we can be very proud of what we do as scientists, and amazing work happening here at Queen's Square. But in actual fact, the public doesn't care much about this, and you can see the attacks, for example, across the pond. So I believe that every scientist has a duty to talk about their science wherever they can, whenever. If you're at a dinner party and someone asks you, what do? Don't just say, I'm a scientist in Queen Square. I'm a scientist and I'm working on a cure for Alzheimer's. And I've been injecting stuff into the brain and it's going really, really well. Yeah? That's the kind of, because people need to know what science can do, so that when politicians then say, well, we're going to take the money away from science funding and we're going to put it into a new, Trident Mark IV, the members of the public will say, no, we don't want that. We actually want you to fund science because they're doing really, really good work and it's improving our quality of life. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. So like Mike, I would like to start by thanking Sandra and Narendra for organizing this event brilliantly every year. I would also like to thank Mike, actually, for compressing 1 year of amazing achievement, and I timed you in 27 minutes. So that's what I would actually call, I think, a tour de force. And of course, I would like to thank every single one of you, whether you are a student, a technician, a researcher, a clinician, and of course a professional services colleague. And in fact, every single one of you is actually contributing to the community, whether it's the Institute of Neurology, the Faculty of Brain Sciences, of course more widely the university. I would also like to pause to acknowledge in particular our education and professional services colleagues who are navigating a challenging time at the moment. And I would like to reiterate, like Mike said, that the success of the Institute simply be not possible without you, and we know actually how hard you work, often behind the scenes, and I want to reiterate, I think, on behalf of all of us, our strongest support. And of course, my warmest thanks are going to you, Ijeoma, for such an inspiring and I would say uplifting lecture. I think your work is really blending beautifully, obviously, cutting-edge chemistry with leadership, but also with a commitment of opening doors for others, because like Mike alluded to, you have been actually involved in UCL in particular in a number of race equality initiatives, and if I can mention maybe only one, I think we should thank you for leading the campaign which led to denaming actually all the spaces at UCL named after two eugenicists. So thank you for that. So I have to say that BBC Desert Island Disc is my favorite podcast. And I was absolutely thrilled when Selina Ray, who is there in the audience, in the summer actually sent me a WhatsApp and said, did you see actually Ijeoma is actually a guest in Desert Island Disc? So I have to say, you were a brilliant guest. If you didn't listen to the podcast, I would really encourage all of you to download it on your favorite platform on your way back this evening. I think it's a very informative, fascinating, but also very moving episode. And I have to confess that all the episode, I couldn't help but thinking, what is she going to bring on the island, you know? And I think she's going to bring a Falcon tube with her favorite nanoparticles or a microscope. And actually, you decided to bring a collection of seeds. And I think listening to your lecture today, and also obviously looking at your career so far, I think it aligns perfectly with your forward thinking, but also with your sense of growth, I would say, both, of course, scientifically, but also for the individuals. So seeing someone lead with such purpose, optimism, and vision is really inspiring for all of us. So I would like to thank you again and invite you all to applause once again Dame Ijeoma and yourselves for a brilliant evening.
Great, so thank you for that, and thank you for a fantastic lecture. So that's the end of proceedings. You're all welcome to join us for a small drink in the reception, so thank you very much.